Welcome back, everyone. My name is Alex Corey, and I'm here with the powerful Ashley DeMarco, and we're going over bulletproof water filtration today. We've done quite a bit of information, and you guys have liked talking about ionization, the electrical properties of water, but we tend to skip over the foundation and the base of clean water, and that is water filtration. And our chosen pre-filter or main filter for our setup is MultiPure. We're going to give you a little background as to how we landed on MultiPure.
So there are so many different filters that you can buy. You can type in filtration on Amazon and I'm sure hundreds will come up. And so both Alex and I have been through the gambit of filters in our, journey to health and better health. And so, we're just going to talk about that journey and like all of the filters that I have used and why they are so just not even comparable to what we use now and we believe is the best on the market. So I'll just walk you through a little bit of my history. I used to use a Brita and I thought that was the best thing. It was like, such a basic entry cost, and come to find out it only filters out the taste and aroma of chlorine. It doesn't even actually filter out chlorine. So that was the main contaminant I was worried about at the time. I didn't know there was any other contaminants in the water, and so that's what I used. What was the first water filter that you used?
I didn't use a filter until Berkey, probably because my tap water in my hometown of Littleton, New Hampshire was pretty good. The municipality, it wasn't the town doing the filtering. It was actually a private organization who did water and light, and they were fantastic for no reason. And it was dirt cheap too. So you couldn't taste any chlorine. They didn't fluorinate. So it was really good tap water, basically, like nowhere near city water. I didn't get into water filtration until I got a Berkey, probably when I went down my deep dive into agriculture, because water pops up at the same time. And there's a couple of the ones that any alternative health site or just holistic health site will recommend, and there's the Alexapure and the Big Berkey, and there's a couple other, but those are the two major ones that are gravity fed, take anywhere base filtration, and that's usually good enough for you if you do a little bit of surface level research, and it's close to an RO system. It's not, but for being able to take it anywhere, it's a good entry level. You're not getting anything, but it is at least removing a lot of the contaminants.
What's the difference between the Berkey and the MultiPure?
Types of carbon. So this is where it gets real nerdy, where you get NSF certifications coming into play. The Berkey, and I'm going to do an entire video on Berkey because it really is the 80%. I don't have to worry about it. You're supposed to be able to take it camping, pour it in. It doesn't do it that quickly, so it's basically just survival water. As in, you're probably, it strips out most of the pathogens and any of the microorganisms, but there's 2 carbon blocks. You can get 4 on the top, and they had when they first came out, a big list of third-party tests of, what it actually reduced. And like I said on the video that I'm going to do, they stopped doing any of the third-party tests, and there's been a couple of Berkey dealers or distributors who started doing their own tests and didn't like what they found with some heavy metals leaching through. So we'll do a separate one on that. But the types of carbon matters, the amount of surface area that the water comes into contact with, and how the carbon is made. So MultiPure does a heated, compacted, activated carbon. So there's actually way more surface area, and it's a different type of maize and different filtration mechanisms. Yeah, MultiPure uses a couple of different absorption, mechanical filtration, electrical. It's not just one piece of carbon. If you split it, the slice of the actual filter has a central filter. There's 3 or 4 different layers of filtration in that single piece of carbon block that looks simple, but it's It's actually quite complex if you want to go into it.
It's super complex, and that's why they're the leaders in the industry. And you probably haven't heard of them just because their marketing is so poor, but they are the inventors of carbon block technology. They've been around for 52 years, and that is why they pair so well with our ionizers, because they actually adapt so quickly together. So the filter, the three components of the multi-pure filter are the mechanical filtration, which is the carbon block porous filtration. This is to get impurities out and, you know, microns at 0.5 or larger. And then there's the physical absorption, which is the activated carbon surface of the filter, and it attracts contaminants. There's 65 groups of contaminants that this water actually filters out. And what Alex is talking about with the Berkey is that there is no NSF certification for the Berkey. There's no you know, it's not showing as a third party test multiple times over and over and over that this technology is actually doing what it is, whereas the multi-pure is. That's what they lead with. They will not even tell you it filters something out, even if it does 75%, because they can't get it NSF certified. They're just very coherent and clear with how they market their product, and that's one of the biggest reasons I went with them, as well with their, you know, 5 decades of history in this technology. So, you know, there's new things coming out all the time, but I love to look at these two companies side by side and say they've been around for almost 5 decades, right? Multi-Pure 5 decades and Enagic almost 5 decades. And they've been part of the evolution of teaching people about water filtration and water health and water ionization. And so these companies, they have longevity and they have the wisdom to really take these technologies to the next level. And so the third part of the filter is electrokinetic absorption. And that is another membrane inside the filter. Like Alex said, when you cut it down the middle, you see these 3 types of filters just in one filter. And so it's an incredible technology, and it's compact. I can take it with me on a carry-on. So I take this machine with me everywhere I go. I pack it up. We'll show a picture below of how we pack it all up together, but it is a very simple technology to take on the go as well. So Alex is talking about, you know, Berkeys are great for camping. I know a lot of people travel. If you're a traveling entrepreneur, you can definitely hook this up with the multi-pure in most kitchens across the world. And we've made it super simple and compact with,
Yeah. Well, and the adapters they provide you are robust. Like, it's almost overwhelming when you receive the adapter set. There's only one type of hose that I have not, or kitchen sink that I have not been able to screw into, and it's similar to that one. Yeah. So anything that has a dangle that just doesn't have a clear thread to get to. But that's why, I mean, I go under the sink with mine. So you can always eliminate the bottleneck, but the travel factor is huge because you can't take an RO system with you. Like, there's 4 different screw-on membranes, and I actually had an RO system when I first got my setup, and I was trying to just hook it up. The multi-pure hadn't come yet. So I just had the ionizer, and it wouldn't, the flow rate is a massive thing. So ROs are just so slow because there's so many membranes. You have to have a reservoir because they're so slow. That's your, you know, drinking water that you're actually working off of. So you could have water that's just chilling in a reservoir, hanging out for, I'm sure most people go through it every day, but if you leave, you just have water that's hanging out in a plastic membrane for a while. So that's not the best thing, but this needs at least a gallon a minute to work. So RO systems usually don't work, and you also need minerals for proper electrolysis. So RO systems don't pair well with that unless you remineralize. And if you're thinking that much into water, then RO isn't a factor at all anymore. Obviously, Berkey, any gravity-fed system doesn't work with that, and I might still, well, multi-pure has a gravity-fed purification system if you're camping. That's their wet system, so I would go with that. And a friend, I really don't like breaking the news of Berkey to people. I have multiple friends who live on the top of mountains around Asheville, and they just have it, you know, if their well goes out or something happens, so that they can just pour water into it. And I don't like breaking the news that they haven't done their testing. Their testing's from 2014. That's why the dealers or the distributors of Berkey, everyone gets itchy about the business models behind Multipure and the ionizer. Every water filtration company has a business model because marketing is so expensive. Everyone's going to give you some percentage, just commissions in every industry. But the dealers of Berkey started doing the tests themselves, and that's when I started finding that they weren't getting out. The tech might have changed. The raw inputs to the carbon blocks might have changed. We've had a lot of supply chain issues, but that didn't help their case. And I make sure to tell everyone I know that has a Berkey to test their water still. And they, you know, some might not care, and water tests aren't cheap. But if you're getting aluminum leaching into that's one of the main concerns. So if you're getting fluoride, arsenic, and aluminum in the bottom clean water, those are three of the main ones that we try to filter out. And they've been out of their bottom arsenic and fluoride reduction filter for 8 months. No, it's probably not coming back in stock. And that was what was leaching. Aluminum. So right now, with just the basic carbon block on the Berkey, you're not getting out arsenic. It might not be leaching aluminum anymore, but fluoride is probably one of the main things that people don't want to consume. That's why they even start thinking about filtration, and that is there's no filter for that for a Berkey right now, which is not good in my opinion.
Yeah, and the very fact that I hated the Berkey because I had to fill it. Nobody ever filled it, so I'd wake up parched, and then it was empty.
And you overfill it. I flooded my floor multiple times. You have to basically assume how much water you're going to go through for the next day, and remember that there's water in the filters. So if you fill it to the brim and no one drinks it, I've woken up multiple times just a puddle of, you know, it's the ground's not flooded, but the bench or wherever it in is going to be dripping, and you're like, I need to get a better system.
It's just not, it's not like if you have a family, if you're, you know, if you're not camping, right? Like if you're in a house and you're cooking and you're making teas and coffees and broths, you're living, right? Like you want that constant flow. And so like whether you get the ionizer or not, you're like that multi-pure, you can have it flowing water as soon as you turn on your sink. In unlimited quantities. And so that for me, because I cook and I have a family, so I'm constantly using water. And so, you know, Berkey is, you know, it's an option, but it's not the best in our opinion for the lifestyles that we're all living. Like a lot of us are home more. If you're working from home more, you're home more, right? And so you're probably using more water. And the Berkey, again, is just, there's a finite amount. If you're like me, most people aren't the ones to fill it. There's like one dedicated person.
It also allows you to take that habit out. So I had to build in a daily thing of, I need to fill the Berkey. Like when you're at the sink, it's on your list of to do. And if you don't remember, you piss, because it doesn't drain that quickly, because it is shoving water through, you know, pretty small pores. So and you have to manually clean the filters. This drove me insane. I would try to make them last longer because I'm frugal. So you could take a steel brush and scrub the outside of the filter, because it is a maze, and the flow rate would go back up. And I tried to do that every month, but you knew when that was happening, because the flow rate would tank. And if you filled it at night, you woke up in the morning, you would have, you know, a third or a half. So inline filters like the Multipure are so nice. You don't need to make a routine out of water. Obviously make a routine out of drinking water, but the cleaning and the refilling and all of that doesn't need to be a hassle, which is why a lot of people don't want to think about water. They don't get separate filtration because they don't want to have to think about it. They just want to go flip a switch, have water, which is the amazing thing about the Multipure. As well as when I was doing the ORP, oxidation reduction potential testing, the Multipure itself wasn't, you know, negative 750 like the ionizer, but it was an order of magnitude better than tap water because it preserves. The only caveat to the multi-pure is if you have a well, it preserves total dissolved solids, which I love because it keeps the best part of water, which is the minerals. If you have like a super high sulfur or iron content or some other heavy particulate that's just way out of allowable range, you still have to deal with that. But you're going to have to deal with that for any inline filter.
Yeah, I mean, wells, most wells are going to have, need a softener and so.
Yeah, it's just the end all drinking water. It's more expensive than a Berkey, but the Berkey filters are $166 right now because I just gave someone the link who I had gifted my old one to, and I didn't know how expensive they were. So you do that once every 6 months, and you end up buying a multi-pure pretty quickly with that.
Yeah, and the multi-pure deal right now with the free filter is a huge. I mean, there's what, 20 some days left in this month. That's a deal that you won't see again until this time next year, but that's a free $150 filter with so you get two. It comes with one and then you get a replacement one. So that's, again, multi-pure is, and their customer service, their the support that this company has for people is incredible. So and if you want to become a distributor for them as well, it's very easy process. It's a one-time fee of $50, and literally you can just share this technology with anybody. And that is really how they've shifted their business model to be. And that is probably why you haven't heard of them, because they're literally been working on getting this out to more people. And as you can see, the way the industry is going, affiliate marketing is the way to go. And so there's a lot of ionizer distributors getting on board with multi-pure right now, just because of the fact that these two pair so well together, and there's nothing. They're the top of the market, right? Like, yes, Alex said you're going to pay a little bit more, but in the long run, you're going to get a better quality product and something that you don't have to, like Alex said, with the Berkey or even the Brita or even a fridge filter. There's all these things, and most of those things that people don't replace enough. And they get moldy. Like, if you don't replace a filter in a Brita, it will get moldy. Same with, I'm sure the Berkey, I never let it go that bad, but I've seen fridge filters that are moldy. So, these things are important. And with the multi-pure, it's about a year. For a family of four, it's about a year. So you think about it, okay, I'm going to replace this once a year. It's not, again, we want you to focus all of that energy on drinking the water and using it for all of its purposes, and not so much, having to clean out dirty filters or wait for water, because that's the reality. Like, even if you have a Brita or a Berkey, like, you're going to have to wait for that thing to filter. And, we want you cooking, cleaning your produce. Like, we want you using the clean water for all of the consuming things. Now, you can use the sink and faucet for dishes and things like that, but we want you to understand that it's not just drinking water that's important. It's what you make your tea and coffee with. It's what you cook your vegetables or your rices or your beans with. We really, making broth, making smoothies. People use water for all these things. So, making sure that you're using a very clean filtered water that removes 65 different contaminants from, and like, we're in the United States, if you go on the EWG, you're going to see there's so many different contaminants you've never even heard of in your water. Like, and that's just not okay. So you being, a person who wants to take the power back has to make a choice to invest in your health in this way. No one is going to change the water municipality rules right away. We might over time be able to do that, but you need to take charge of your health right now, because there's so many contaminants listed on that EWG site. And the number one, result of continued consumption of it is cancer. And so cancer is on the rise. Our goal is to help in all of the ways of preventing cancer from entering, our worlds, because, health is literally your greatest wealth. There's nothing more important than health.
water is something you shouldn't have to worry about impacting your health negatively. It's whenever you're learning about all of the toxicity that we face on a daily basis and just the general onslaught, there's a couple of things you can immediately take control over. You can't control heavy metals or particulates coming out of the air, but you can do water and food immediately, which is why we harp on those. Growing your own food or getting local food that's contaminant free as possible. And then water is the easiest one and the most impactful, in my opinion, because you are made up mostly of water. And there's a couple of weird things that happen whenever you switch your water. And both companies actually put on their site, I think it's the Mengen effect, which is kind of like what starts happening if you go on a detox protocol, where people are like, you might feel weird for a couple days, because if you stop poisoning is a harsh word, but if you stop poisoning yourself,
sugar,
everything, your body goes into a cleanup process, and all of those toxins have to go through your bloodstream briefly before they get excreted. So if you start cleaning everything up, you're going to notice some changes abruptly, and then you'll feel better. But they both put, and the ionizer specifically, because it makes such a dramatic impact on the quality of water in all of your cells, where you will feel noticeable changes quickly.
Most people are dehydrated chronically, so like they're dehydrated daily for decades. Yep. So it's to get back into a optimal hydration, or not only dehydration, we're talking, mineral deficient is huge. So many people are mineral deficient. So when you're adding not only pure liquid crystalline ionized water to a cell in the body and all of those minerals at the same time, like Alex said, you do change things very quickly. And so there are definitely different not even side effects, because it's a detox. Yeah, you're clearing stuff from the cells, it's a great thing. And honestly, your body becomes the filter. So when you eat bad foods or you drink liquids that are acidic or filled with contamination, your body then becomes a filter of that. And so when it's stored in your cells and then you drink something or you start a healthier diet and it starts pushing that out of your cells, it's going to feel crappy, right? And so it's, for me, it took about a week for my body to really, really regulate. Now I was pregnant, so it was a massive shift for me. I went from really, really sick to like being able to eat. And so again, there was so many different things happening with me. I'm sure Alex can share a little bit of his story, but we've had plenty of people that we've worked with have multiple different things. But then on the other side, it's like they're sleeping the best they've ever had. Their, the digestion is stronger. Their bowel movements are stronger. They have, they didn't have an appetite. They have an appetite. Yeah. They have better libido. Like there's so many different things just on a physical level. And then there's the emotion and the spiritual.
That was the weird part. Me and a couple other men who just don't talk about our emotions regularly. Whenever we started, the multi-pure didn't do this by itself, but the ionizer definitely did, where a couple weeks after starting to consume it on a regular basis, and we'll be releasing more detox protocols with other gentlemen that shared this with us. You just go through a bit of an emotional detox as well, where just things started coming up that probably just I hadn't dealt with or processed for years, and just came to the forefront of my attention. And this gets into water as memory and storing information fields, and the science around that is still in its infancy. I mean, there's plenty of ancient esoteric wisdom around it, but modern Western science has barely started to scratch the surface on water as a carrier of information. So if you start replacing all of your cellular membranes and the water, that once it gets unpacked, you get to deal with all the information that it was storing. So that was a weird one. I didn't expect that one, but then it's gone.
but then it's gone.
Right.
And then on the other side is so much more clarity and brain functioning, like acuity. And, you know, better memory. For me, I have so much more energy, and I have the ability to manage multiple things in my head without stressing out. Like I was so much more of a stressed out, anxious person before finding this water. So, you know, most people are like thinking, oh, I have, you know, gout, or I have gastrointestinal disease, or I have cancer, even all these things that are physical problems. But every physical problem comes with more emotional stress, right? If someone's told that they have cancer, they can't just not have emotional stress about it. So there's all these different layers to healing. And so when you think about the opposite of that, when you're detoxing things from the body, it's multiple layers.
Yep.
And specifically, the more men are talking about their emotional reactions, because it's more uncommon for that much emotion to be processed at once, whereas women are doing it more on a daily basis. But even for me, somebody who had a yoga practice, a meditation practice, a gratitude practice, I was eating like 100% organic, cooking all the meals, I was doing all of the things, I still had a massive emotional detox as well. And so it's, you know, a lot of the things that we choose for our health, we choose because of desperation. And there's so many different things that we think we want, but then once we make that decision, and it is such a simple thing, it's water, right? It's water filtration, it's water ionization. You don't think about it too much, but that simple of a change can really change your whole life.
Yeah.
And
there's a couple of things that I just now harp on where nutrition gets so complex. But if you just focus on water, protein, and fatty acids, because they make up the bulk of your structure in your vessel. So if fatty acids make up every single membrane, the gray matter of your brain. Proteins used for every enzyme, which is used for every biochemical reaction. So if you focus on the big ones, so water quality, protein quality, fat quality, like your physical body shifts drastically because they make up the structure of everything. So you'll notice a little more fluidity. Lots of people have reported just reduction in symptoms related to inflammation. We had one person, and people give a little backlash whenever we talk about neurological disorders because there is no causality proved. But in our community, we have so many anecdotes, stories of just massive reductions in neurological inflammation. So just symptoms of debilitating pain that have been lingering for 15 years. We have people who have noticed drastic improvements in MS seems to be the big one. Any sort of rashes or psoriasis or any of that. And it's just all related to inflammation. So if you can give your body the resources that it should have to fight inflammation instead of accelerate, or your liver and your kidneys are under a lot of stress just with filtration and detox. Your liver is your main detox organ. So if you can take away a massive layer of toxicity and let it deal with the root inflammation as it is perfectly designed to do, people notice things they've been dealing with for a long time either get drastically reduced or just completely disappear, and they start being more active again, which then has positive feedback loops. So reducing inflammation and being hydrated is always the core.
And he's mentioning that because we really do want to make it simple. Like when it comes to diet and nutrition, it's so complex, and there's so many different avenues, and there's millions of people telling you different things. And so we're just literally breaking it down with the simplest thing you can do is change your water.
Yep.
And there's two things you want. You want the pre-filter, which is the multi-pure, and you want the ionizer. Because in combination, these two things are not only going to filter your water, but this machine is going to give you 100 different uses in your home. So, you know, we're talking about water for your ears, your eyes, your face, your, you know, for women, for their vaginal area. Like, there's so many uses of this water. And as a mom, like diaper rash, prevention of my daughter was raised, like, she grew in my womb on this water. I found it when I was about 6 weeks pregnant. And her journey into health has been so drastically different than my son. And she just goes to the water. She asks for the water all the time. And it's incredible to witness her journey, because I didn't have access to that as, you know, as a new baby, but she has access to it, and she's constantly seeking it and using it for all these different purposes. On herself. And so it's really incredible, because, you know, this is stuff that we're passing down to our children. This last 25 years. So I knew when I purchased this, my son was going to go off to college with this, you know, this is going to be his device. And it's just, for me, the investment is really nothing. It's cents a day, right? Like, this is 54 cents a day for my whole family to have access to this water. And so, it's really truly a fact of, like, we're trying to make it as simple as possible. Like, 2 technologies you need for your kitchen, and, you know, the multi-pure, that unit will last forever. It's a lifetime warranty. The only thing you're going to replace on that is the filter. Like we said, it's about every year, on average, for a house, a family of 4 in the United States. So.
And just a quick word on this, just on the marketing side. If you start to do the research around water, and we've both been putting out a ton of data on molecular hydrogen, as well as our community, a lot of the confusion comes from the bottled water industry catching the alkaline water hype. So we do lots of videos on this. You can make water alkaline very easily. You just dump synthetic minerals in it. Obviously, minerals are important, but there's nothing special about the alkalinity if you're just dumping minerals in it. The thing that makes this special is molecular hydrogen. That is why it is a alkaline pH. That's why the drinking water is 9.5. That is a direct percentage of molecular hydrogen, which is usually diatomic hydrogen, because it doesn't exist as a single atom usually in nature, bonds easily. And that is where most of the health benefits are derived from. There's tons of data on PubMed, US National Library of Medicine. We'll put links below, and I have it on almost all of our data. Is electrolyzed reduced water, which is the scientific term that you can search for the studies for that, and molecular hydrogen on blood viscosity, on basically impact on any specific detoxification pathway, enzymes. You can get real nitty gritty, but there's more and more data being pushed, because hydrogen is, for some reason, just now being acknowledged as one of the fundamental ways to impact health. It's not a great way to make money, which is why it was not talked about for so long, is you can't really do a lot if you can't package it in a pill. It's just get more bioavailable hydrogen in yourself. And one of the things that just blew my mind, and I don't know why I just discovered this, but it was on a recent podcast, and the question is, why do I have to worry about hydrogen? Why is adding or diffusing molecular hydrogen in water beneficial? Where do we normally get hydrogen from? And it's usually the very last step in your colon, your microbiome. It takes so much energy to strip hydrogen off of all the food we eat, which are hydrocarbons. If you look at chemical makeup, they're all oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen if there's protein. But it's the very last step in digestion, is ripping hydrogen off, because hydrogen ions are used for literally everything in your body. So most people's microbiomes aren't top notch at this point, which is why we're not getting the plethora of hydrogen we need. And, you know, if you have excess, it just comes out as gas. So molecular hydrogen is one of the quickest ways to help your body detox. There's lots of good data on its effects on your own detox pathways, superoxide dismutase, glutathione, all of your powerhouses that do the work for you, fighting that chemical bombardment. But just wanted to do that as a note, because there's a lot of garbage on the internet on, is alkaline water healthy? It has nothing to do with alkaline water as most people think of it. It is hydrogen itself, which is the powerhouse.
And its ability to literally navigate the entire system.
Yeah. quickly. It's a gas, so it permeates cells very, very fast.
And then you have access to creating this whenever you want when you have your own machine. And then all the other uses of the technology.
That's just that's just drinking water, right?
So, it's talking about, a lot of what you see is online is just talking about the drinking water.
Right.
And it is very, very crucial to be consuming that hydrogen, like Alex said, because I believe we have such a deficiency in this because of the glyphosate being sprayed, right? It's being sprayed, it's killing the microorganisms in the soil, which is making the food less nutrient dense, and making us more deficient in minerals. And so, the fact that all of our microbiomes, I started my health journey with a very terrible microbiome. It was like I had all the inflammation symptoms. And so to be able to have this water after about 8 years on a plant-based diet, eating all organic, I'm able to eat meat products again. I'm able to eat a more ancestral diet again because of my process of using this water. And so, I like being able to eat real protein, right? It feels better for my body, but before having access to this water, I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the tools to digest that kind of stuff. So, again, there's so many different things that can happen. We do work with I work with an anthroposophical medicine woman who uses this technology in her practice. And, there's a few different, Alex with Primal Health Coaching, there's a few different people within our community that can actually coach you through and help you through specific ailments that you might be dealing with. But like Alex said, in terms of reducing inflammation.
Yeah, it bridges all diet gaps. So I've been vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, paleo, carnivore, done everything. And you could get into wars and people get extremely triggered over all of those things because there's usually an ideology involved. There's no ideology with water. There is. You can worship water because it's the life force. If the quickest way to make yourself feel like garbage is just to be dehydrated, none of your organ systems appreciate it. So if you're going to pay attention to something, and if you want to be really, really tripped out, a lot of people do water fasts on that, and that is a whole different experience. I had a good friend, just as a side note, we were chatting about marketing one day, and I brought him over some of the ionized water, and he had ionized water before, and every time he took a sip, he would just be like, dude, why is yours different? I've had ionized water before. Why is yours so different? I was like, it's probably the multi-pure. Most people run tap water across that, and this is not, it's not a filtration unit. It does have a pretty decent filtration, but that's not what it's built for. It's an electrolysis machine. So he was very amazed that he also wasn't eating. And if you have an empty stomach, so the water is not mixing with gastric acid and getting diluted, you notice some pretty energy boosting effects quickly because that is raw ions hitting you. So his eyes kept lighting up and he's like, why is this different? And I was like, because most people don't use a pre-filter. Yeah, makes a huge difference.
Waking up and drinking a 32-ounce glass of that for your coffee. You won't even need the coffee.
That's where I'm at. And it's still such a heavy addiction. I just love the coffee, but you don't need it. You start going. It revs all of your metabolic processes up. It feels calm and clean. You still have that productivity, but there's no
drop.
There's no drops. There's no ADHD. It's kind of like when people do fasting. It's just a clean, focused, calm energy, which is ideal for basically everything.
It is. For me, it's like I send my kids off to their school with that clear, calm, send them with their, and again, you can take this everywhere. So you're constantly adding it, you're constantly to your body, you're constantly fueling yourself with that energy. And so, even if it just helps, for example, I'll just share an anecdotal story about my mom. Even if it just helps somebody reduce their amount of food, right? Because she's drinking water more. She lost between 25 and 30 pounds within the first 3 months. And so, you know, what did that do?
Yeah.
It jump-started a lot of other metabolic processes, and then she got her energy back. She got more clarity. She was able to go off some of the medication she was on. She was able to regulate her thyroid a little bit more. There was so many things that happened because of just the boost. And now I have water in my hands instead of needing, because a lot of people stress eat, you know, a lot of people, there's a lot of going on in the mind, and so they eat trying to ground the body. But you can actually just drink water and have that same process. And again, you're getting energy and you're not adding to, I mean, if you're grabbing good, healthy foods, that's one thing. But if you're grabbing, you know, fried or greasy, which I know most people grab when they're stressed, you know, they grab the quick, easy, fast foods. And those things are going to pull your energy down so much. And so, you know, we're just trying to get people to make better, quicker, healthier decisions. Like, I take this everywhere. It's super easy. I'm not having to make a bunch of food before I leave the house. I know I can pour, you know, Alex puts magnesium in there. You know, there's a bunch of things that you can throw in. You can just throw in a scoop of protein powder and shaking it up. Like, there's multiple different ways to utilize this as a nutrient, something that's going to pull nutrients into your body. So you're thinking about taking your supplements, you're thinking about proteins or pre-workouts or whatever you take, taking it with this water specifically from this machine is going to deliver those nutrients and all of that, those minerals and the potential into that cell so much faster. Because if you think about it, Alex probably talk more about this, but the delivery of nutrients when you're drinking, think about, okay, let's think about your favorite supplement that you take with water. Imagine just taking that with tap water. What's the difference there?
Well, probably just bioavailability, which is the general issue in the world today. Is if you're reading a nutrition label and you see everything on and you see all the minerals, there is no way to measure bioavailability, how much of those are actually getting incorporated into your cellular mechanisms. So if your body is, well, foods today tend to be packaged with a lot of anti-nutrients, and that's a lot of things that chelate or bind. And these are naturally occurring substances, so this is one of the main pitfalls of grains, primal health coaching. Not everyone will agree with that, but that's fine. Anti-nutrients in general are just any compound that will prevent the absorption of your body of nutrients. So some of them will chelate, which is what glyphosate does, binds to nutrients. Cilantro and chlorophyll does this to heavy metals, which is why they're used in detox processes, but that is chelation. And if something is bound to minerals, it's taking it with it. So if you're going to excrete it, that's not available for use for your body. So even if you're pounding minerals or you think you're getting adequate nutrition, bioavailability is everything. If your body can't get to it, it doesn't count. It just goes right through you. And this is most supplements. This is like turmeric or curcumin if you're not taking it with a fat and activated with black pepper. And this is why it's kind of like olive oil, pepper, and turmeric is the like power combo, because it's not fully absorbable unless it's in fat, because it's a fat soluble compound. Really specific things like that that people glaze over because it is complex. But just having water that's not contaminated with additional hydrogen as the secondary effect is the foundation. Everything will work better because bioavailability goes up. If you're not introducing chelating agents or drinking it with heavy metals, and then your body will, you know, you don't want your detox pathways firing all of the time. You want some cool, clean rest, right? Yeah, your body gets fairly exhausted constantly cleaning up.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing that I've noticed in my just lifestyle. I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink really any drinks.
Ooh, I will add to that. The cheat mode, because occasionally I still drink alcohol and I do beat my body down a good amount with resistance training, and I still do coffee. And if I overdo any of those, it's almost a hack, and I wish I didn't have it because it actually encourages me to see how far I can push it. I just had an interview with someone in our community, Paana Alapai. She runs a CrossFit gym, and that's what she noticed as well, is the recovery.
Right.
It's like halved if you're doing that water. So it allows you, for better or worse, to get away with more because you know you can just supercharge the recovery process.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, there's that the way that I live my life isn't, I don't expect anybody to go that far. It's just what feels really good for me. And so I bring water to the bar, you know, if I need to go to the bar. And it's for me, it's the sustainability aspect. I'm not constantly going and buying 5-gallon jugs from the water store. It saves me money.
Yeah.
So it saves me money yearly having this technology because I've never bought a cleaning product in 3 years. Yeah. I haven't used laundry soap. I don't use really anything for my face, literally at all. Like no soap, anything, just the 6.0 water. And then for our growing purposes, like for what we grow medicinally, we grow so much stuff with this water. So
I was just going to point out, so that we're in a tiny home right now, and that water is in this tiny home. This one's hand soap, but there's going to be a bottle in for every purpose in this location, just utilizing the different options on that machine. So you can eliminate 90% of all of the products, home products.
I mean, deodorant, mouthwash. Like if you're going on vacation, you're bringing all these little plastic bottles of all these things, right? You get to a place and you just have access to it all, and you don't have to go out and buy anything. That's the thing we want you to really realize, is that once you invest in this technology, you're going to learn all of the ways that you don't have to invest in other products. And every single product ever placed is a plastic bottle. It comes in a plastic bottle. Whether it's the best product on the market or not, most of the packaging we see in this country is plastic. And so I just think how important it is to really, we don't really talk about that either. You know, what one household replaces in a year, just in terms of their carbon footprint, is huge. And that's important to me because, again, I want to leave the planet better than how I found it.
And I'll just throw another anecdote. I just recently moved, and my microgreen business partner and I went out. He helped me move, and I treated him for lunch. And he is I'll put a picture of him. I'm sure you guys know him at this point. His name is Justin, and big metal beard, metal t-shirts, tattooed everywhere. And he's actually, we had the water growing microgreens for a year before I got my machine. And you would not picture him as a water nerd or just someone who appreciated water that much. So whenever we're going out to eat, he had a beer, and he brings this military grade tank of water with him, which definitely spurs a conversation because he's just a very attention grabbing persona. And then he has this massive jug of water, and he loves talking about it because it has changed his entire outlook, perspective, general energy level of ambition, like the amount of projects that we're planning for next year in our permaculture endeavors. And I noticed that massive shift whenever he started. He still drinks plenty of beer, like he ordered beer at the bar, but now he chases it with water, and that's a treat. Instead of just constantly doing beer all the time, water is his predominant, his general person has dramatically shifted, and that's not uncommon to see.
No, it's incredible. Actually, that's why we do what we do.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I didn't continuously get to witness people literally transform everything. And like Alex said, you know, you grab it for the health. You're like, oh, I want it for health. And then all of these other things start to come into place. Like, how can you put a financial number on that transformation that he just explained his business partner, Justin, our business partner, had? I mean, I got to witness it too. It's absolutely incredible. But somebody's starting to grow, they're going to grow a ton of medicine next year. And so like, that's huge. I mean, just the inspiration, the drive, again, the mental clarity that he now has to be able to actually execute these projects. And
his communication changed. Like weird things that you wouldn't picture.
Confidence. Yeah. There's so many things, and that's what's so fun for me is that a lot of the times when couples come in, it's always the woman that wants it.
Yep.
and the husband or the partner is really resistant, and then all of a sudden the partner is starting to have more massive emotional, spiritual, and just again positive results, right? Like finding more gratitude for their life, sleeping better, you know, just having more energy to get their work tasks done. It's pretty incredible. I really love that, because it's just something that I don't even talk about in my marketing. It just happens naturally. And, you know, so much of my business thus far has been built just completely off of just organically sharing the water. I mean, I go to events and just share it because people literally drink it and have these, they're like, why does this taste so different?
Right. Right.
It's so good. I feel, you know, a lot of people use the word hydrated. I know there's not a better word, but it's like they actually feel hydrated. And that's the number one thing we hear from all of the people in our actual water network. The one way that really makes them solidify their decision is they leave. So they'll have the water for a couple months or years, and then they go on vacation and they leave the technology. They go without it for a week, right? And they everybody has the same response. No matter how they could buy Fiji water, they could buy any bottled water, right? I did the same thing. I bought the best water in Mexico when we left for the first time. I was so dehydrated. I couldn't even, it was terrible. Like I was chugging water and just, I could feel it was sloshing around in my stomach, and it wasn't actually hydrating me. And so that's when you really know, you're like, wow, like, for me, I was like, wow, I'm never leaving without that machine again. And I really don't.
Yeah, if it impacts your daily energy and outlook on
Happiness.
life, that's a big one. Like I've dealt with clinical depression before, and I'm not saying it'll get rid of clinical depression, but if something that simple will change your general perspective, paradigm, and outlook on life, that's hard to put a price on. And then if you can do everything else with it, like as we were planning for the permaculture stuff, we're just like, usually you have to think about all of these other things, irrigation, water, and we're like, wait, we use the same thing. Like there's no change. You just use the lower pHs. So again, it is kind of a one size fits all because there are so many control options for hydrogen. I mean, hydrogen runs almost everything.
And we want you to like take back that power, have that choice to have the best water, and then have that choice to use that water to grow the best foods and medicines. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, this thing fills my 20-gallon reservoir for my tower garden that I can stick in a corner in a tiny home. It is so, you know, that there's so many ways that you can grow food. I mean, microgreens is probably the easiest source of nutrition with this technology. And Alex has a ton of content to share with you and educate you and teach you how to do that. But that is the most simplest thing you can do paired with this water to get more of that nutrition into your body.
And if you want to try it, there are plenty of people who water share, because it is a chunk of money up front, but I tried it for a year. So there's a global map, and I will put it in the show notes, and at least 50 people that I know, because I make so much content around this, have used this. And probably if you're in a major or around a major metro area, there will be a number of people who are happy to have you come to their house or meet you somewhere, and they'll fill up a container for you or let you try it. And then once you start incorporating it over a week, you'll notice some fairly drastic changes. So if your BS detector is going off like mine was, then just try it, and you'll see it for yourself. It's pretty amazing that network even exists as well.
Definitely. I mean, that's the thing. You're not going to find any other community in the world that's this willing to share this water. I mean, this is in 100 countries. So you could even travel to Bali, find somebody on Facebook that'll share the water. I've been to Florida. I share the water every time I go to Mexico. It's really a gift for me. Like, I really treasure it every day. I'm so grateful for it, and I'm really happy to give it. It feels like a service mission. Before getting into distribution of this technology, I was already on the health journey. I was a yoga teacher. I was sharing health. this gives me something that people can take home, right? They're staying in my Airbnb in this tiny home. They feel really good. They're drinking the water. They're bathing in this, but they're doing all these things. And then they actually get to buy the technology and take it home with them and continue that journey. I think that's a huge part of what we're missing in the health just retreat industry, because people spend all this money to go and then they come back to their life and everything's the same, right? But if you can bring this technology and change that most simple basic thing, right, your water, it really does change so much. And yeah, we just, again, I want to make it simple, and I want to make it just, you see the value of investing in your health in this way.
Yes. Yeah, and she mentioned the Anespo, which is one of their other products, and there will be a separate video on that, because that is we think of water predominantly as being consumed, but obviously you bathe in it, and that is just, or almost just as absorptive. So whole nother product, whole nother subject on reducing contaminants that way. But anything else you'd like to add? We'll have all the information below this for where to find it, how to learn more about it, how to contact us. Come find us at one of the events. We're both in Western North Carolina, and there are quite a few where we fuel with this. But please reach out if you'd like to know more. It was great chatting with you.